Catwoman's journey on film has been rather spotty, to say the least. And without the shadow of the doubt, her lowest point was, is, and will always be Halle Berry's 2004's Catwoman, a film that bared little to no resemblance to the actual character, and even damaged Catwoman's reputation for several years. But what most people don't know is that way before Halle was ever even on the map, another actress had signed on to play the role. An acclaimed actress whose career was derailed by a powerful but evil businessman. An actress named Ashley Judd. After the release of Tim Burton's Batman Returns, sequel to the monster hit Batman, and the hugely positive response to Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, the studio executives realized that Catwoman had tremendous potential for profit, as Batman Returns had turned Catwoman into a worldwide phenomenon, mostly thanks to Michelle Pfeiffer, who, by the way, to this day is still universally praised as the best part of the film, by both audiences and critics alike. However, back in '92, Catwoman pretty much outshined every other character featured not only in Batman Returns, but in any film from that summer, becoming the most popular character of that year, and further cementing Catwoman's status as a pop culture icon. Just about everyone was hypnotized by her strong, fierce, magnetic presence and her out-of-this-world feline beauty. Beauty that was featured on all types of merchandise, which was obviously massively successful. So naturally, with all this buzz and success surrounding the character, the studio executives saw the opportunity to expand the Batman film mythos and their wallets. So with such a massive popularity surrounding the character, Warner Brothers quickly announced a Catwoman spin-off film, with both Tim Burton and Michelle Pfeiffer confirmed to return. From the beginning, both of them were very open with their excitement for the film. However, Tim Burton and Michelle Pfeiffer were not the only ones returning, as Daniel Waters, writer of the cult film Heathers, as well as the screenwriter for Batman Returns, was also hired to return as a screenwriter for the Catwoman film. Batman Returns producer Denise Zenobi would also serve once again as a producer to the Catwoman film. At first, and for a while, everything was going well with the development of the Catwoman film. That is, until the next Batman sequel was released. Batman Forever was a raging success at the box office, nearing the profit of the first Batman installment, and vastly surpassing the box office revenue for Batman Returns, thanks in part to a much lighter, family-friendly, colorful tone, as well as a larger star-studded cast, which included Jim Carrey, Tommy Lee Jones, Nicole Kidman, and even Hollywood darling Drew Barrymore. The huge success of Batman Forever made Warner Brothers adapt and modify their Batman-related projects going forward, making them have a more kid-friendly, toyetic appeal, and thus shelving Daniel Waters' darker, introspected, eccentric Catwoman script. But without an approved script, or even a clear creative vision, the Catwoman film was suddenly out of place. To make matters worse, after seemingly no progress being made, Tim Burton grew tired and eventually ventured on to other projects. But the final nail on the coffin for the Catwoman spin-off film was Michelle Pfeiffer's pregnancy, which ironically seemed like history repeating itself, as the first actress to be cast as Catwoman on Batman Returns was the 5-time Oscar nominee Annette Bening, who had to drop the film when she and Dick Tracy actor Warren Beatty were expecting their first child. And now Michelle Pfeiffer was in the same position, and just like Annette Bening, Michelle Pfeiffer had to drop the film, understandably taking time off from acting to focus on her newborn child. With these series of events happening, the Catwoman film was now without a star, a director, or even a script. entering the infamous development hell status, remaining there for several years. That is until a wave of successful comic book adaptations started to dominate the big screen during the late 90s to early 2000s, led by films like Blade, X-Men, and Spider-Man, which proved to be quite profitable. So naturally, all studios were eagerly looking for comic book properties to adapt into film. And all of a sudden, the pre-production for the Catwoman film was revitalized once again. But with Michelle Pfeiffer well into her 40s, the search for the new starlet to take the Catwoman mantle began, and a huge wave of famous names started to make the rounds, which included just about every actress under 40. News outlets and movie forums were filled with debates and speculation as to whom would land the coveted role, with the most recurring names being the sultry Angelina Jolie, the exotic Salma Hayek, the statuesque Charlize Theron, and even the controversial rock star Courtney Love. Then suddenly, and to everyone's surprise, on early 2001, an actress was finally chosen, and the announcement was officially made. Rising star and Hollywood darling, Ashley Judd had signed on to play Catwoman in her own solo film. This announcement received massive attention and made headlines all across the world, in various media outlets, and while the majority of people reacted positively, some outlets did poke fun at the casting announcement, such as popular comic book and pop culture magazine Wizard, who actually approached former Catwoman Michelle Pfeiffer about the recent casting announcement, to which she was very gracious and supportive, stating that she was sure Ashley would be great in the role, and even offering some silly advice, telling Ashley to make sure they gave her suit a spot for her to use a bathroom, as well as a mask that actually fits. In some ways, this brief but sweet and lighthearted statement served as a passing of the torch, the Catwoman torch, which actually helped shut off some of the naysayers, and thus a new era for Catwoman had seemingly begun. Now, for those wondering why Warner Brothers chose Ashley for such a huge role, well, Ashley had starred in several financially successful, highly acclaimed films, with critics always praising her range and consistent quality. Because no matter how big or small the project or the role, Ashley always delivered a powerhouse performance, proving herself time and time again on a wide variety of films and genres, which had quickly made her one of the most sought-after actresses in the business, holding her own next to some of the best and most seasoned actors in cinema history. With this much buzz surrounding Ashley, it was no surprise all major studios were eager to get her. In fact, at that point, she was making over $10 million per film. So, with such a promising actress playing such a coveted high-profile role, the Catwoman film immediately became a hot topic and remained as such up until the release of the Halle Berry Catwoman film in 2004. Updates on the development of the Ashley Judd Catwoman film were ever present in news outlets. In fact, it seemed like every week some new detail would come out, no matter how small or unimportant the detail would be. The Catwoman film was always mentioned. One of the very first reports to come out claimed that Joni Lauder, better known to wrestling fans as Chyna, was in talks to play a small role in the film, which was rumored to be nothing more than a henchwoman of sorts, and a physical threat for Catwoman. Of course, it was no secret that the Catwoman script had gone through many different revisions during the long development process. So, one of the first reports revealed that the screenwriter for the Catwoman film would be none other than John Rogers, who would be later known for co-writing the Michael Bay Transformers films. However, the most shocking report about the film, without a doubt, was that the main character featured in the Catwoman film would not be the same Catwoman from the comics and the previous Batman film, the character that everyone knew and loved. Selina Kyle. Instead, the film would feature a brand new character called Patience Price, later changed to Patience Phillips, a shy, quiet, meek, working-class woman who would go under a drastic transformation to become a heroic version of Catwoman. It was right at that moment where all of us who were anxiously anticipating a Catwoman film started to worry and began to fear for the worst. Following the shocking report of Selina Kyle's absence from the Catwoman film, another shocking report came out, stating that the story wouldn't take place in Gotham City, but a whole new location called Lake City. So basically, not only would the first solo Catwoman film not feature the real Catwoman, but any ties to the Batman mythos were also being erased. Quickly after, several hypnosis for the film began circling the press. One version featured the aforementioned Patience as a pet store owner by day, who at night became Catwoman to fight crime and animal injustice. Another version was reported to be the story of a woman who would take on the Catwoman mantle to discover the identity of whoever killed her father. After these possible plot revelations were made public, one thing became quite clear. The first Catwoman film wouldn't feature Catwoman and had absolutely nothing to do with the actual Catwoman character, and was basically a Catwoman film in name only. And as you can probably tell, no one was really looking forward to this film anymore. Instead, the anticipation turned into morbid curiosity. When rumors began about possible directors stepping in for Tim Burton, two names were reported as being on top of the list. The first was the TV commercial and film director from France, Kinka Usher, who had previously directed Ben Stiller's superhero comedy Mystery Men. The second name on the list was the also French director and special effects specialist Pitoff, who had previously directed the film Vidocq, starring Gerard Depardieu. Warner Brothers would eventually settle for the newcomer Pitoff, making Catwoman his American film debut. On May of 2002, it was announced that actor Owen Wilson had signed on to play the male lead, which was a detective called Tom Lone, who served as the romantic interest in the film, though he would eventually drop the Catwoman film to play the lead in Starsky and Hutch. The role of Tom Lone would eventually go to Benjamin Bratt, known best for the cult classic Blood In, Blood Out. Later that year, veteran actress Frances Conroy and French actor Lambert Wilson officially joined the cast as unspecified supporting characters. On August of that same year, Ashley was the subject of an episode of Revealed with Jules Astner, which aired on the E! Entertainment channel, where Ashley briefly talked about the Catwoman film, her excitement playing such an iconic character, and her anxiousness to finally read a completed script. She even joked about having to fight off many other actresses for the part. By the way, this would be the first and only televised interview in which Ashley talked about the Catwoman film. On early 2003, heavy rumors began to circle about a possible cameo from previous Catwoman actress Michelle Pfeiffer, rumors that only turned out to be half true. On mid-2003, the project yet again began to fall through, beginning with a damaging report stating that Ashley was very unhappy with the quality of the final script. She was even quoted saying it was amateur work and too immature, and that the script needed a lot of work. The long, tumultuous process, as well as the instability of the project, had made Ashley weary, and she was no longer willing to commit to such material, officially dropping the film, choosing instead to star in the Broadway play The Cat in the Tin Hut Roof, where she ironically played Maggie the Cat, a role made famous by Hollywood legend Elizabeth Taylor. Needless to say, news outlets had a field day reporting the ironic project switch. And the pre-production for the Catwoman film was mocked, ridiculed, and labeled as a disaster by the press. And once again, the Catwoman film was without a lead star. However, this time it was not for long, because despite the bad press surrounding the production of the Catwoman film, the role remained greatly desired, as a wide variety of high-profile actresses were already in the running for the part. The most notable name being Oscar winner Nicole Kidman, who, after several meetings, came very close to starring in the film, and was actually in final talks to sign. The possible casting of Nicole Kidman brought quite a bit of attention to the already highly publicized project. The Warner executives were so adamant in getting Kidman to sign that most outlets assumed it was a done deal, and that she would indeed star in the film, making the mistake of announcing it as an official casting. Sadly, despite a reported healthy salary, the commitment to a 3-picture deal, as well as a lackluster script, made Nicole Kidman turn her back on the project. The role would eventually go to fellow Oscar winner Halle Berry, who was no stranger to comic book films, having played Storm in the popular X-Men franchise. With Halle now on board, the project would finally start filming, with leaked photos from set being frequently published across different mediums, remaining a hot topic during the entire filming process. However, after publicity photos of Halle in costume were released, things would take a shocking turn, as the press pursued Ashley for a comment regarding the Catwoman film, to which Ashley would make one final statement. American Star magazine reported that Ashley was bitterly upset over the loss of the role, opening up about her deep regret in leaving the project. The magazine quoted her saying, "It's the stupidest thing I've done, by far." Ashley also confessed that when she saw the photos for the first time, she thought, "That could have been me." On 2004, the Halle Berry Catwoman film would finally be released, becoming universally panned by critics and audiences alike. Frequently considered to be not only the worst comic book film, but one of the very worst films in general, going down in history as a huge loss and embarrassment for the studio, and everyone involved with the film. After the release of Catwoman, Ashley was once again approached about the film, but this time she told a different story, and she seldomly answered that the only reason for dropping the film was nothing more than a scheduling conflict, stating that she had no interest in seeing the film, and that she didn't know if she would ever even watch it. After that interview, Ashley never mentioned the Catwoman film again, and the Ashley Judd Catwoman connection was barely and rarely ever mentioned since. Now, curiously enough, aside from Ashley dropping the film to star on another cat-themed production, there were several other comic book ironies that happened after the project fell through. For example, another Catwoman irony was Joni Lauder's role in the comedy film Frank McLusky, where she dressed as Catwoman for the climax. French actor Lambert Wilson starred in the cat burglar-themed film Flawless with Demi Moore and Michael Caine, best known as Alfred in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy. Frances Conroy had a starring role in the hugely successful 2019 film Joker, which was loosely based on the Batman villain. Ashley would go on to co-star with several other comic book film stars, such as Wolverine Hugh Jackman, General Zod Michael Shannon, Ocean Master Patrick Wilson, Nick Fury Samuel L. Jackson, Black Adam Dwayne Johnson, Two-Face Aaron Eckhart, Lex Luthor Kevin Spacey, and Batman actor George Clooney, as well as Ant-Man actor Paul Rudd, not to mention that both Owen Wilson and Benjamin Bratt joined the Marvel Cinematic Universe years later. In spite of all the chaos and everything that happened behind the scenes, it would appear that everything worked out for the best for everyone involved in the production of the Ashley Judd Catwoman film, which is the exact opposite of what happened to the cast and crew for the Halle Berry Catwoman film. Owen Wilson went on to have a highly successful Hollywood career, becoming an A-list celebrity, known best for his romantic comedies. And even though he did eventually venture into the comic book movie genre, none of those films included any cats. French director Kinka Usher returned to directing TV commercials with much success. He even sold his mansion to Ellen DeGeneres for a whopping $22 million prize. But what about the would-be star of the film? Well, her career did take a major dive as a result of that infamous powerful businessman everyone knows, who had her blacklisted for a long time, making her lose several high-profile roles she had landed. Most notable, perhaps, was a starring role in Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings trilogy. However, despite the effort of that powerful man, Ashley would continue to shine bright, finding a new purpose in life outside of Hollywood, becoming an advocate for women's rights, mental health, and children in need, as well as a fighter and spokesperson for the conservation and awareness of endangered species, such as bonobos. Philanthropy and noble causes aside, I think it's important you understand, especially if you were not around back then, just how much of an impact Ashley made in Hollywood, and just how highly respected she was back then, way before any of the current political tensions. Ashley was one of the most highly acclaimed actresses of that time, who was known for giving powerful performances since day one, and had quickly become respected by not only film critics and audiences, but by film directors as well, like the legendary Oliver Stone, who cast Ashley for Natural Born Killers without even auditioning her, after seeing her performance in the small indie film Ruby in Paradise, which was her very first film role, and for which she won several awards. After Ruby, Ashley went on to star in multiple successful blockbusters. Most notably, perhaps, were the thrillers A Time to Kill with Samuel L. Jackson and Sandra Bullock, as well as the Oscar winner Matthew McConaughey, with whom she was in a relationship for a while. She also starred in Heat with fellow Batman star Val Kilmer, where she ironically played his wife. Double Jeopardy with another fellow Batman star, Harvey Dent, Tommy Lee Jones. Kiss the Girls with yet another Batman star, Morgan Freeman, with whom she formed a friendship, and with whom she would go on to collaborate 5 times, as of right now. Ashley also ventured on to other genres, like the romantic comedies Someone Like You, where she played opposite Hugh Jackman, better known to the world as Wolverine, and The Divine Secrets of the Yaya Sisterhood, again with Sandra Bullock, as well as the veteran actors James Garner, Maggie Smith, and Ellen Burstyn. And she even played Jim Carrey's mom in the coming-of-age film Simon Birch, which, by the way, is yet another Batman connection. As we all know, Jim played the Riddler in Batman Forever. But Ashley also got to work with some of the most acclaimed directors, such as David Lynch, William Friedkin, Joel Schumacher, Julie Taymor, Philip Kaufman, and of course Oliver Stone, amongst others. Ashley is one of those rare, highly intelligent actresses who elevates whatever project she's in, who always brings something special whenever she's involved. I have to admit that my first reaction to her casting announcement wasn't particularly positive, I think, as I always had a different type of actress in mind for Selina. But as time went on, I began to warm up to the idea and eventually accepted her. So now, in hindsight, I genuinely feel like this was a major loss for Warner, as she really was a big deal back then. And who knows, she could have been an incredible Catwoman, perhaps even as good as Michelle Pfeiffer's. For me, though, she will always simply be the best Catwoman that never came to be. Ironically, all that remains is this innocent photograph, a simple image of Ashley and Hallie posing together at an event, which at any other time could easily go unnoticed. But knowing what went on behind the scenes, well, this photo takes a whole new meaning. Perhaps this photograph was a warning of what was to come. Perhaps. Just perhaps. Now, I would love to hear your thoughts on the matter. We all know that the Catwoman script was doomed from the start, but do you think Ashley would have made a good Catwoman? Or are you happy with Hallie and what she did? Yes, I know that the Catwoman disaster was not her fault, but regardless of that, do you like what she did with the role? And if not, who else would you have cast during that time? I'll be reading your answers or anything you want to share in the comments. In the meantime, thank you so very much for watching. Hope to see you in the next one. Be safe and well, and remember that everything works out for the best, eventually.
You were everything, everything that I wanted. We were meant to be, supposed to be, but we lost it. And all the memories so close to me just fade away. All this time you were pretending. So much for my happy ending.